Hi, Taylor T. Carlson, and I'm back with another video for you. And going down the movie reviews again, today we're going to take a look at this new steelbook of Airplane, one of the classic comedies of the early 1980s, and the movie that, of course, unleashed the Abraham Zucker comedy team on the world. We'll start out with a quick unboxing, and then I'll give my review of the film itself. Here's the spine. Here's the back cover. And this folds open, so it's like, all one big picture there. And inside, of course, you've got the inflatable autopilot. Got your disc on this end. I'll take that off the spine. Here's the actual disc. Pretty much looks the same as every other Paramount movie that's released on Blu-ray. And underneath there, you pretty much just have more blue sky. Not a bad-looking steelbook, but I wish they had at least included a few of the human members of the cast on there. Pretty much seems like Otto has become the mascot of this film, and perhaps rightfully so. The movie itself, of course, stars Robert Hayes as Ted Stryker, a shell-shocked war veteran who has to land a jet airliner when the crew and several of the passengers find themselves sick from food poisoning. And co-starring, of course, is Julie Haggerty, who plays Elaine, his stewardess girlfriend, who he's on the flight to try to win back. And of course, he gets more than he bargained for. For being a comedy, this movie actually has a huge ensemble cast, which is actually quite surprising. There's also Leslie Nielsen, this being his first comedy role, which completely changed his career. Prior to this, he'd primarily only been known for more dramatic, serious roles, including the captain of the spacecraft in Forbidden Planet back in the 1950s. There's also Peter Graves, great classic actor, the brother of James Arness. And then, who else we got? I had to write this down because there's so many people in this movie that I can't possibly remember everyone in one go. Lloyd Bridges also appears in the film. He's the father of Beau Bridges and Jeff Bridges, both successful actors in their own rights, and it was actually his kids who encouraged him to take the role. Robert Stack, he, of course, would go on to be known as the host of the television series Unsolved Mysteries, and he'd do a few voiceover roles, including an ATF agent in the Beavis and Butthead movie obsessed with giving people cavity surges. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the first officer on the plane, and there's a few clever jabs at who he really is. Of course, he was an NBA superstar. Barbara Billingsley, the mom from Leave It to Beaver, and later the voice of Nanny on Muppet Babies, appears in a completely unexpected, surprising role in which she's the only one who can communicate with jive-talking passengers. Maureen McGovern appears as a nun. She's best known for her rendition of the song The Morning After. And then Jason Wingreen, Ethel Merman, and even James Hong, who's a character actor that shows up in pretty much everything. Airplane, of course, is the movie that really unleashed the Abraham Zucker team on the world. Prior to this, they'd made the Kentucky Fried Movie, and that was actually directed by John Landis. But this is the movie where they decided they needed to direct to get creative control, and it's kind of unusual to have 3 directors on one film, but I think the end results speak for themselves. It's a comedy that definitely stands the test of time. You've got a gag going on in literally every single scene. Some of them are very obvious and verbal, some of them are in the background, and you have to actually pay attention. I did a review a few months ago for their TV show Police Squad, also starring Leslie Nielsen, which later spawned the Naked Gun movies, but, same deal there. That TV show was actually canceled because it required the audience to pay attention, and because it was almost too funny. Kind of the same deal here. This was the beginning of what they unleashed on the world. And if you're going to watch this movie, give it your undivided attention because the style of humor on display certainly will not disappoint you. There are a few portions of this movie that would definitely be considered politically incorrect by today's standards. I won't go into that here, but I think, again, anyone who watched this movie is going to laugh and laugh hard. A lot of comedies don't hold up 40 years later, but this one absolutely does, and it was a pleasure for me to go back and revisit the movie. There have been many releases of Airplane on home video. Of course, this isn't even the first Blu-ray release. We had an earlier Blu-ray release, which was actually not bad, and it had its share of bonus features, including a few that were not ported over to this release. That version had a long-haul version that had some extra interview clips. There was also a trivia track and a theatrical trailer. None of that is carried over, but there is a commentary track that's carried over from the earlier release, and We get some new bonus features here as well, including a filmmaker focus interview. Most of the Paramount Presents releases seem to have one of these style of interviews. There's also like a 35-minute Q&A filmed at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, and just listening to the Abraham Zucker trio answer these audience questions, it's almost as funny as watching the movie itself. Oddly, the Steelbook contains absolutely no reference to this being part of the Paramount Presents line, although, interestingly enough, the Steelbook comes with a digital copy, which the normal Blu-ray release in the Paramount Presents line does not, so go figure. The picture quality on this release is actually very solid. It's an upgrade from the earlier release. This was stricken apparently from a new master. The one issue I have with a lot of these Paramount Presents releases, of course, is they only release them as 1080p Blu-rays when a lot of them have 4K quality masters, which could easily be released on actual 4K discs, and they'd look really good. I mean, that extra uptick, I think, would make a lot of difference in several cases. Are you a fan of Airplane? If you are, you definitely want to pick up this release. Let me know down in the comments section below if you picked it up, and let me know what you think if you've managed to pick up this new release, either the Steelbook or the standard Paramount Presents release. Also, like this video if you found it helpful, and remember to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content. I'm Taylor T. Carlson, and I will be seeing you in my next video. And stop calling me Shirley.